Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Insightful Accountant webinar, Outsourcing 101 for Accountants and Bookkeepers, Strategies and Tips to Outsourcing, sponsored by Pacific Accounting and Business Services. Insightful Accountant is an online news and information source written for small business advisors interested in the latest news and offerings in accounting technology. My name is Emily Hedrick, and I'll be your webinar host. If you have any questions during the session, please enter them in the Q&A box and we'll try to address them. Everyone that has registered will receive a follow-up email later today with the handout and recording. Oops, sorry. Today's speakers are Jim Merrill, the President of U.S. Operations at Pacific Accounting and Business Services. He holds a Bachelor of Business Administration with a major in accounting from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where he graduated with honors. With 20 years running small business and more than 15 years providing small and mid-sized enterprise accounting, Jim is committed to providing an outstanding client experience. His experience and expertise has allowed him to create outsourcing solutions for hundreds of small businesses. Teresa Kieki is the COO at Pacific Accounting and Business Services. She brings over 20 years of experience designing custom accounting solutions to Pacific Accounting and Business Services. As the owner of a consulting company for 15 years, managing accounting projects for small, medium, and large companies, she was personally responsible for performing over 60 accounting contract jobs. For the most recent 5 years, she has served as managing director at 2 Orange County accounting firms, designing accounting solutions, forming and managing those teams. Jim and Teresa, thank you both for being here today. And when you're ready, you can get started.
Thank you, Emily. Let me share my screen. It always seems to go well in practice, right? But let's.
There you go. You just had it a second ago, but it did go away.
There we go. All right, Emily, thank you very much. And good morning to some of you, or good afternoon to some of you, and good morning to most of you. We want to talk today about offshoring and outsourcing. And some questions for you to consider as we get started are, do you want to improve margins, build a competitive advantage through pricing? Do you need to enjoy a scalable model to meet new business demands? Do you want to employ a pool of qualified professionals? Do you want your internal staff, your staff now, you want to focus them more on client acquisition, client relationship, and of course, client retention? So if your new business development plan is to increase top line revenue, so here's the question for that. If that's the case, does that mean more profit or just more work? If you do increase your top line revenue, will you have the staff to manage the workload, or will you find it a challenge to retain new clients if your staff becomes overwhelmed? On your screen before you really are the 5 benefits that we think come from having a strong outsourced relationship. Today we're going to look at how the blended shore outsourcing strategy can help you build the capacity needed to increase that top line while improving your margin at the same time. Effective outsourcing by CPAs has become a critical step towards having the resources and cost structure necessary to meet those market demands. Tens of thousands of professionals are already outsourcing, and they're saving millions of dollars doing so. Those not doing the same are losing out and find themselves really priced out of the market. Today we'll show you how to join the club of outsourcers by incorporating a blended shore model into your 2021 business plan. Here's Teresa to start us with some basics.
Good morning, everyone. Outsourcing models. Let's define the different ways companies can employ outsourcing resources so we understand the benefits, features, and differences of the different models. First things first, let's do it in terms of good, better, and best. A good option if you need extra help is to outsource using a third party that is here onshore. Work performed by companies outside of your organization, but here in the US, such as temp firms, consulting firms, or contract labor. This is expensive, but it will solve a short-term problem. A better solution can be non-US or offshore partner. That's what we're talking about today. It's commonly referred to as offshoring. Offshoring is defined as contracting with an individual or company that is not in the US. Those labor rates are going to be much lower. We know this, but it may lack coordination and the results can be spotty just depending on the situation. So let's talk about the best possible solution, the blended shore business model. You're going to hear a lot about that today, the blended shore business model. The blended shore business model is where the bulk of the work is done offshore, realizing those 50 to 60% cost savings, much like the offshore model. The big difference is that in addition, you will have access to a US-based outsourcing expert. This expert will be able to support and coordinate your talented offshore team. They will become part of your internal team. They will remain a part of that effort for as long as is necessary and available whenever necessary. This expert's contribution is what makes the offshoring successful. Seriously, without this important piece, it can be a challenge. So again, the blended shore business model is simply the best combination of talent and cost savings. This is how your firm can realize improved profitability. This is how your firm can increase its bandwidth comfortably. This is how your firm can allow your internal team to shift their focus to client relationships and retention and new business development. Be cautious, however. Not all blended shore firms are created equal. I would like to caution everyone and make sure you have some information you need to make a really good choice here. As we just covered, the real important point is that there needs to be a US-based implementation project manager assigned to your firm. This is the critical piece that makes it successful. You'll want to look at a firm that has made a solid investment heavily into the infrastructure. You want to make sure they have a full company, an IT department, an HR department, quality department. You want to make sure they've invested in software and trained on that software, that they've given their team the equipment and the internet capability and capacity to have 100% uptime. You really want to make sure they have secure processes. Data security is always a big question. Look for ISO certifications. Look for process and procedure security efforts across the company. Another thing that's important is to look for a staff that has experienced chartered accountants. You want those chartered accountants to have teams of solid team leads. Everybody needs to be degreed in accounting. Everybody needs to have experience in accounting. This is kind of a new concept, the remote work experts for some people since COVID. However, a good blended shore company that has been doing this for a long time has known how to do this for a long time. They understand the importance of the video interaction. They understand the importance of technical setup, and they can work in these environments so comfortably that they feel like they're in the next office, not halfway around the world. You also want to look for a company that has a solid and structured use of standard operating procedures. This is critical. You want that team standardized. You want them to understand expectations. It's a very important piece to the control of your outsourced team. One of the additional important features to have in an outsourced solution with a blended shore component is that they have a team approach. That way you have different levels of talent, you have management oversight, you have training, and if there is some turnover within your team, it would have zero impact to you and your team. A wonderful way to protect against turnover. These are some of the must-have criteria for the successful blended shore business model. Many international firms have an outsourcing model, but few have a comprehensive blended shore team concept. Jim, now that we know what a blended shore business model is, why don't you tell us who's using it?
Thanks, Teresa. So really, practices of all size have offshore partners, from single owner firms, small bookkeeping companies, large bookkeeping organizations, all the way to the largest multi-partner CPAs. In fact, we're probably most aware the Big Four all mandate that significant portions of work be done offshore to resources in India. I've heard figures ranging from 20% to recently I heard as high as 60% of work is pushed to offshore teams. So a lot of folks doing it, very common. Enrolled agents, offshore work, large bookkeeping companies, attorneys with tax practices offshore work, and CFO consultants, also offshore work. Teresa, talk a little bit about what can be offshored.
You might be very surprised, Jim, at the variety of work that can be managed by a blended shore solution. So you're planning your 2021 workload. You want to look at a wide range of activities that could possibly be managed by a blended shore team. New slide. Any voluminous repetitive task can be offshored successfully. Those client services are never as profitable as they should be. In fact, many of these services are loss leaders. The clients are rarely willing to pay for the cost of those services, so either the work goes undone or is done poorly. By reducing the cost for these services, you can provide good accounting support for your client base, and you are no longer running a loss leader program. You are, in fact, now making a little bit of money, keeping your clients close, and setting yourself up for the more lucrative tax work. When a client comes in with a shoebox or a poorly maintained QuickBooks file, the blended shore strategy will give you what you need to get that work done inexpensively and efficiently. I personally have been part of dozens of these prior year rebuilds, and they are complicated and time consuming, and they require expertise. Your blended shore team will effortlessly complete these tasks so you can proceed with the tax prep, filing, and other work. In addition to all of the client service accounting, the bulk of tax prep can also be done offshore, saving you both time and money in that effort as well. The combination of both services, client service and tax prep, will allow so much bandwidth and room for growth, along with all the cost savings. Your firm will experience not only a boost in that top line revenue, but the much appreciated and anticipated increase in those margins. Jim, why don't we talk a little bit about audit support? Can outsourcing work there?
Thanks, Teresa. Yeah, so audit process outsourcing really is one of the ideal tasks to send offshore. Here's an example of an audit process client of ours, and what we've done here is we've set up to offshore task in phases. So, for example, phase one included setting up the work papers and setting up trial balance as part of the audit. Next, down the line came phase two, preparation of the planning documents and the testing documents. Then moving into phase three included setup of testing work papers. So all these tasks really ends up being, you can outsource, you can offshore as much as 70% or 80% of the work around an audit engagement. And that just really means two things. One, huge savings in terms of the cost of doing that audit. And two, it really provides an opportunity for your internal staff to take more of a leadership role and do the much more fulfilling work around the audit. Moving next, where is accounting offshore happening? So the Philippines right now is the big provider of call center outsourcing. Vietnam has become a key player in software development and global IT services. But India, having entered the industry more than 20 years ago, remains the center of the outsourced accounting and business processes world. Thousands of CPAs are already offshoring work, and the numbers are growing. I mentioned the Big Four earlier. They all have office buildings full of their offshore staff. This means that India offers the resources with education, training, and experience. There's access to more resources. There's a solid infrastructure. And importantly, there's knowledge on how to successfully outsource. So there's a number of reasons to incorporate the blended shore staffing model into your 2021 strategic plan. We were showing a few of these here. The key is to really take a look now and plan in advance rather than waiting to respond to some of your challenges. Better profits is always probably the key impetus that folks look at. How can I save cost? And recently I had this quote from a client, and I'll let you take a look at that. But sure makes a lot of sense. But there's more to take a look at. So Teresa, why don't you talk about how to build a competitive advantage?
Right. So everyone loves the comment and the quote there that clearly the profit margins can be increased. This is some fairly simple math. What it's going to do is allow you to win more business and create a competitive pricing structure. So if you're going to experience a 50% or more drop in the cost of your operations through the blended shore strategy, clearly you can become more competitive in the market. Grow that top line revenue with that new lower pricing without sacrificing that profitability and in fact improving it. Many firms see the 50% or larger drop in that incremental cost of operations as their revenue increases using this strategy. It's simply a win-win. I suppose it's fair to say to do nothing means you're probably already being priced out of this market. As Jim mentioned, this is a trend moving towards everyone being able to lower their prices and provide services at a more competitive rate. Too many firms are already taking advantage of these offshoring benefits. Would really like to express to everyone this time to join this trend. This is really easy math and very, very simple to get to a win-win situation.
So if there's really a shortage of talented accounting professionals that many of us have noticed over the past few years. In fact, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics is predicting that demand for qualified accountants is going to continue to grow through 2029. You know, those competent and experienced accountants out there, they're often looking for jobs in large corporate environments, or they're planning to start their own practice. The result is a shortage of talented professionals. The skill gap is a big problem in the small and mid-sized accounting world, especially. Finding competent professionals locally is extremely challenging in this competitive market. Choosing a blended shore approach is a solid option. Firms that are struggling to find experienced and competent staff will be delighted with the depth of ability from a quality offshore team. This is how you're going to overcome that shortage of talented professionals.
Once you are able to plump up your staff with the offshore solution, let's talk about some of the amazing consequences or results of that decision. Higher client satisfaction scores and higher employee satisfaction scores. How does this happen? I mean, who doesn't want higher client satisfaction scores? Activities like managing employees can sometimes take us away from that primary purpose. Put the focus back on your clients and watch those scores rise. At the same time, your employee satisfaction scores will also enjoy a boost. The option to delegate and manage will be key in avoiding the dreaded burnout and keep your internal employees happier. Really important to note that recruiters have reported the CPA firms are losing employees in the first 2 to 6 years due to burnout and lack of advancement opportunities. This is the main reason given why good employees leave good firms. At 2 to 3 years in, right when they start to add real value to your firm, that's when they start looking for something new, if burned out, frustrated, or bored. A blended shore strategy will allow these employees to take on some new responsibilities and grow project management skills. So, you know, the intended consequences of a decision like this are happier clients, happier employees, increased profit margins. What else, Jim?
So you've got happy clients, happy employees. Let's go out and win some new large clients. With your new ability to focus on client acquisition, scalability will absolutely necessary to handle the new workload. The access to basically an unlimited pool of trained, experienced accountants gives you the bandwidth to manage the additional revenues, and again with the improved profit margins. Instead of overwhelming your staff with that new business, enjoy the scalability of your experienced blended shore solution. Teresa, let's talk about a 2021 plan.
Right. So we've given you some very good reasons to consider this. So what's in your 2021 plan for growth this year? Does it include cost savings? If so, blended shore solution can be a 40 to 70% cost savings over U.S. resources right off the bat. Does your plan include new business acquisition where you will need scalability? Incremental additions and or swarm capability for those big projects are easy with a blended shore strategy. And if you're concerned about client retention, new client acquisition, have your blended shore team manage more of the operations and let your internal staff pay more attention to the clients. To achieve a plan like this, you might be ready to consider adding a blended shore accounting solution to your firm. So let's talk about how you go about doing that, Jim.
Are you ready? Outsourcing is easy to arrange, easy to go find an outsourcer, but it's really important and complex at the same time to get it right. So how do you go about it? First step, evaluate your firm needs. What's your current capacity? What are your growth plans? What are the areas that need improvement? What are your staff duties that take them into accounting versus their client-facing activities? All of that needs to be analyzed, and that will help you really evaluate the needs of your firm, where it wants to go and how to get there. Next, you want to define that scope. While you do that a lot based on the firm needs, a good offshore partner can also help define what tasks can be offshored. Those who have not outsourced or offshored work before may be surprised sometimes at the tasks that can be done. And we talked about those a little bit earlier. But like I say, a good offshore partner will help you determine that out and build the plan around that.
I couldn't
Teresa,
agree.
how do you find that right solution?
Right. I couldn't agree more. Thanks, Jim. You've decided to offshore, you've defined your scope, you've taken a look at what your firm needs will be. Now, how do you make sure you're working with the right partner and the right solution? Again, you're looking for experienced staff, experienced, educated staff. You're taking note of the infrastructure and the investment made in the organization, and do they have all of that support staff? You're looking for a solid team that includes chartered accountants. You want to make sure whoever you're working with lives and dies by standard operating procedures and has standardized deliverables understood across the firm. You really want to understand the data security model. You want to look for ISO security certifications, and you want to understand how document sharing and data is protected. As we've brought up throughout the presentation, clearly the most important component to finding a successful offshore solution is to use a blended shore model and make sure you have a U.S. expert here as part of this team to integrate, coordinate, communicate, and bridge that gap.
So you found the right partner. How do you make it a success? The implementation really should be a structured period. You want to take time and understand the client, really define the expectations, use checklists to go through the onboarding process. And as Teresa mentioned, that standard operating procedure really is the key. I love this quote below from Daily CPA, and especially that last sentence. The key here is utilizing standard operating procedures or SOPs to reduce ambiguity about how work should be done. Define the work, or what do they say? Plan the work, work the plan. That's it. Use that standard operating procedure really to define everything, from calendars and steps, accesses, and so forth. It really is a key tool. As I go through implementations, the question I get asked a lot is, how do you? Whether it's how do you accept documents, how do you access our systems, and so forth. The answer is almost always it depends. Depends on what works best for you. Do you use Dropbox or Google Docs? Do you use LogMeIn or VPN? Do you use Zoom or Google Meet? A good partner is going to be able to adapt to your environment, your systems, your needs. They're going to be flexible and be able to work within your method of doing things, your environment. So it's key to find that partner that fits those needs. So you've now got that partner on board. How do you make it a solid relationship? It's much like having internal employees, your internal staff. It's critical. You want to have scheduled meetings. You want to set agendas, frequent two-way communications. Phone calls, emails, all of those work. But also, don't forget those casual interactions. Get to know each other. Have fun. The younger staff members may all have Facebook accounts that they're sharing back and forth. You really want to help your new blended shore team become part of your team. It's not just the offshore side, but it's really part of your team, and they could be a key part of your success. Let's talk about how much savings. So I found this chart a while back, and it's an interesting view of starting salaries for the different positions. You'll see I've circled starting rate at the conservative end. So a tax services senior is going to start at $62,000. Tax services staff, actually experienced staff, $49,000. So just using those, how much savings can we see? So if we take those projected staff salaries, add in some basic employee costs, the health benefits, the payroll taxes, leave time, et cetera, add some overhead. Now compare that to resources with the same capabilities or offshore. You'll see a 60% savings almost. In 1 year for a single resource, that's a $33,000 to $42,000 savings. That really is significant. Now if you multiply that into a team, let's say a team of 4, 3 staff and a senior. At that point, you're looking at $140,000 savings in year 1 and more than $700,000 over 5 years. If you're a larger firm and more duties you can offshore, then you're looking at, let's say, a team of 8. At that point, you've got as much as $1.4 million over 5 years. So the savings are significant. It takes a little bit of work to make it happen, but I think that makes it worth it. Teresa, why don't you wrap us up here?
I'll wrap this up. Thanks, Jim. So the conclusion is really about the simple math. You're going to be dropping your costs significantly, improving those margins. By doing that, you're going to be able to build a competitive advantage through your pricing. You're going to have access to a scalable model. You're going to be able to meet all of these new business demands. You're going to enjoy a pool of qualified, educated, experienced professionals. Probably the most important thing is your internal staff will be able to turn their focus back onto client relationships, client acquisition, managing those relationships, and retaining those clients. All of these features become very, very attainable through adding a blended shore business model. And as we discussed, offshoring and outsourcing are not all the same. You really want to look at the blended shore concept, a US-based expert to help you with the transitions and with all communications. All of this is possible through the blended shore business model.
Thanks, Teresa. Emily, that's it for us. Do we have any questions?
I have one question that says, how do you work with the time difference? I feel sorry when I work with people that are 11 to 12 hours different than my time zone.
You want me to take that?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, sure. Our teams generally shift their work hours to be available on half the clock. So if it's an East Coast company, we have a 2 to 3 hour difference depending on the time of year. And that's where your US expert comes in very, very handy. We make sure that we handle any communication during the middle of the night. We make sure the team understands what's needed. We address it right away if we can, and usually we do. And the next day you're on this back and forth tennis match of information flow, and everyone gets a good night's sleep and is able to coordinate and work together.
Awesome.
Interestingly enough, just to add on to that, we do have small business clients who they're busy all day long with running their operations, and they don't get to their accounting usually until the evening. So that's one of the pluses there. They find that that's often a good time to meet with their teams. So I'll say it all depends. It depends on what you need, and a good partner will provide the flexibility to make it happen for you.
We have
Emily,
another
anything else?
question. We have
Yeah.
2 more questions so far. Do you have a firm that does blended firms? I guess maybe as a client.
Read that again for me.
Do you have a firm that does blended firms?
I think they mean blended shore.
Catherine,
Yes.
if you want, yes, yeah, she said yes.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
Oh, okay.
Teresa,
I
maybe
think
you got it.
Catherine asking if we have a firm that does a blended shore model, and the answer is yes, we do. That's exactly what we do.
Yeah. In fact, you'll see on my next slide, we've been using a blended shore model since about 2008. Works very well for us and for our clients.
Someone says, who are some of the most reputable US-based blended shore service providers?
Well, I'm going to put us at the top of that list. How about that, Jim?
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. There's a number of folks out there. I don't know all of the market. I do think it's always valuable to shop and meet people. There's
Right.
the market's always changing. Go ahead.
Right. In my experience, I've run across several offshore outsourcing organizations that work some version of this. However, I am particularly proud of what we've created here because we've definitely perfected the concept and the model. And that's why it's successful. And that's why we're talking about this today.
Someone says, how does this work with a one-person bookkeeping company?
Oh, it works great with those. We have several video testimonials if you go to our website with the one-shop bookkeepers who have hired our services to be the white label support, and they get to focus on their client service. They get to focus on the relationship management, and they instantly have a staff to grow their firm. And as Jim pointed out earlier, they really develop relationships with their team, and so they have a lot of fun, and they still maintain their one-person business, but they have a lot of help. Very successful.
It's really the scalability that comes into play. Imagine you're that single person practitioner, and you've got a large client. Are you going to add a staff? Are you going to add desk space to your office, buy new computers, and so forth? All of that costs. When you've got an offshore, blended shore relationship, you can add all of that incrementally. When a few clients, you add a little bit of support. When a huge client, you still got that support there that you need. And so it really is a much more manageable way to grow from small to bigger, or even from bigger to even bigger than that. So that's what it's all about, is that scalability, that ability to grow.
Okay, someone asked, does your company own a business that is a blended shore business to help firms become blended? If yes, what is your website?
No, we're a blended shore services provider, so we don't help others do it, but we've been offering this service ourselves for a number of years. Hence our expertise in the area. And I will happy to share who we are.
Someone asked, how is the accuracy of the offshore team?
Outstanding. Absolutely amazing. And what really makes the accuracy successful is, again, that blended shore concept where we have standard meetings, regular meetings. We are going line by line through the trial balance, certainly in the first 2 to 3 months of implementation, really unwinding all the details of the business, all the past, rebuilding a prior year if we need to, because this is a team that will want to get to the very last penny. And I do mean the last penny. It's just how they're working. It's part of their standard operating procedures. It's how the training works. They are really, really efficient with accuracy to the penny.
Two
Someone
other
asked,
key areas around that would be the SOP and the team structure. So SOPs define the process, define the results, and it really has a big impact on how work gets done. And then also team structure. We've set it up. We've set ourselves up much like a CPA firm would. So we have the staff and the seniors and the supervisors and the managers. So there's multiple layers of eyes and reviews and levels of expertise. And so that leads to the success of the system.
Absolutely. By the time it gets to you, it's been through many different filters. So you're looking at really successfully boiled down, accurate financials.
someone asks, does PABS use staff in India or the Philippines?
India.
India.
Okay. What is the range for services for smaller firms, i.e. what type of investment for a one-person firm?
Depends on the needs. We have engagements as small as a few hours a month, all the way up to we have one firm we provide dozens of resources to. So on the smaller side, it just really depends on what those needs are. We can start with a half-time person or just whatever it takes to manage the functions, manage the accounting for a single client. Really a lot of flexibility. That's the key to that scalability concept is bring in what you need when you need it so that you can free up your time and bring in more and continue to grow that.
How do you handle the currency differences in terms of paying for the offshore work?
Everything's done in U.S. dollars. So anybody who works with PABS is contracted with a U.S. company. So there is no fund conversion.
Okay. Someone says, my firm offers fixed fee subscription pricing. So when we work with contractors, we like to offer fixed fee contracts to them on a per client basis to control our margins on each client. Do you guys only work with hourly, or would you accept a fixed fee per client model?
Yeah, fixed fee is our favorite as well. It's more predictable, better for the client, better for us. It's just an ideal way to go, and it saves the hassle of always counting hours, right? So most of what we do is fixed fee.
Has anyone ever asked you if you could assist their move to the U.S.?
No, I've never been asked that, but be happy to talk through that if somebody wants to reach out to me.
And I have one more. I may have missed this, but kind of pricing per hour. Oh, it's a per hour or fixed value. So we just talked about that.
Yeah.
Those are all the questions we have from now. If you guys, how do you handle security for the offshore team?
So again, we did cover this a bit. The ISO certification is what dictates all of our data security. Because we're finance, because we're remote, we follow ISO standards, and we're ISO 9001 and 27001 certified. And it's all about protecting the data. All of the physical infrastructure, the policies, and everything else is in place to ensure client data is safe.
All right, that's all the questions we have. If you guys have a few more words to wrap up.
None. I'd love to hear from anybody who wants to reach out. Emily, thank you very much for hosting us, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this the last 40 minutes.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jim and Teresa. Great presentation. Everyone, I will get the handout and recording here to you just a little later today. We had one comment, great webinar. So thank you guys so much.
Thank
you
very
for
much.
Joining us.
Thank you.
Hope you all have a great day and hope to see you all at the next Insightful Accountant webinar. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.